have really gotten out of hand, haven't they? I get it. I do. Crossovers and guest characters are theoretically an easy way to drum up hype and reach out to fanbases that might not otherwise pay attention to a game in the first place. If I'm sitting on the board of directors for any major fighting game publisher, there are dollar signs in my eyes anytime I hear of any guest character plans that are lined up for whatever the studio is cooking up next, even if those dollar signs are unfounded. It must really sound nice in theory. Now, crossovers in the beginning were fine. They were rare occasions due to licensing hurdles involved in making them happen, and for the most part they made sense in context. X-Men vs. Street Fighter was the result of Marvel-branded fighting games developed by Capcom for the CPS2 arcade hardware, and with Akuma showing up as a secret boss in Children of the Atom, there was a proper build-up. Capcom vs. SNK worked because both companies' fighting IPs fought on roughly the same level, and SNK was in a position where the benefit of a larger stage for their characters outweighed any perceived detriments of working with a company that had been a direct competitor up to that point. That's all well and good, and a new installment of Marvel vs. Capcom or Capcom vs. SNK would be more than welcome at any point. 2003's SoulCalibur 2 introduced the concept of guest characters to fighting games, where you release a standard mainline installment of your fighting IP, but drop in characters from outside to supplement the cast. Being there at the time, it was kinda surreal seeing the buzz that was brought by characters like Link and Spawn, but being a part of the game's established community already at that point, it was very off-putting seeing the hype surrounding SoulCalibur 2 being almost entirely about the characters that were brought in from elsewhere. As a tournament organizer, this was even worse because there was a direct conflict between system-exclusive characters and operating a standardized competitive landscape. Every time I ran a tournament during that time, I would end up fielding questions about the character rules, or dealing with people whining about me not running the GameCube version because they wanted to play Link, who would be banned anyway. More to the point, though, it bothered me that SoulCalibur 2's main attraction was no longer the simple fact that it was goddamn SoulCalibur 2, going to all remaining active platforms when its predecessor was the Dreamcast's most iconic title throughout its entire lifespan. Why take attention away from that? Namco could have sold it on that fact alone. Now, thankfully, platform-exclusive characters would be a short-lived practice, and the standardized environment from console to console would go uncontested in the long term, but it seemed like guest characters became more and more prevalent as time went on, drawing attention away from fighting games' own merits and making them entirely about what characters would be making appearances from outside IPs. The law of diminishing returns has to kick in at some point, right? The more frequent and expected that guest characters become, the less value they must offer. Tell me, did Terminator or Joker legitimately sell any copies of Mortal Kombat 11? Did anyone actually buy Tekken 7 because of Negan or Noctis? Did a single solitary person see Warden or Baiken added to Samurai Showdown and declare, "Holy shit, I have to pick that up now"? To get out in front of it, I know there will be someone in the comment section telling me, "But Patrick, here are all these links to react videos of people getting hyped for all these guest characters, so clearly you're off base because the excitement surrounding these announcements is real." But the problem with that approach is the fact that these react videos are being made by people who already own the games. The publishers already have their money, and these same players are overwhelmingly either already invested in the season passes, or at the very least their purchases are assured regardless of what is or isn't in there. Let me be clear, I don't dislike crossovers as a general concept. Capcom vs. SNK 2 is one of my favorite fighting games ever made. However, because guest characters are practically expected of fighting game developers at this point, so much shit is being thrown at the wall that very little of it actually sticks, and such occurrences have gone from being potentially exciting to inevitably annoying as developers continually undermine the consistency of their IP's tone by bringing in characters that usually just don't fit the setting. It must also be pointed out that none of these guest appearances are likely signed in perpetuity with their rights holders, meaning at the very least, the content, if not the entire game, will have an expiration date on it that will require its delisting at some point or another. This is a practice Microsoft is starting to pay close attention to outside of the fighting genre, so hopefully it spreads throughout the gaming industry altogether. And personally, I wish there could be a 10-year moratorium on guest characters in fighting games outright, because that seems to be the particularly lazy and random edge of this practice. If you must do crossovers, make a proper one like BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle. The licensing and conceptual hurdles that must be cleared for such a thing to work would ensure they go back to being rare, sensible, and important occasions when they happen. Hopefully the yield on these would be substantially greater than any guest appearances we've seen in any of these games in years, and we can go back to seeing IPs largely stick to themselves until they gather on a grander scale and make it really matter. Unfortunately, to follow up on a game design philosophy video I made some months back, it feels like there's a quote-unquote rule of hype at work in the fighting genre, where anything that can generate hype, or even the impression of hype, for an upcoming game is treated as self-justifying, even if it doesn't affect the game's bottom line for better or worse, doesn't make any sense whatsoever, or clashes altogether with the game's setting or concept. concept. I know for a fact that if I was breaking into development as a fighting game creator, I would neither borrow nor lend or be for at least a decade, just to make sure it actually meant something if or when I ever did decide to collaborate. And that's all for now. If you like this video, then please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, as it really does make a difference for the channel's growth. Click the notification bell if you want to know right away when the next video comes down. I'm Patrick Mifflin, sounding off.